Hello and welcome, I'm Saffron from saffrondominises.com, and in today's video we're going to talk about EFT for isolation. So isolation is something that we've talked about a lot in the Healing Womanhood group, which you can find over on Facebook, unless you're there already. And it can be a real struggle for lots of people because of the way that we kind of live in modern society. So we're not living in communities, we're not living in tribes so much. Some of us are, but most of us are not fortunate enough to have that kind of structure to our social lives and to our living situation. And we're living in our own separate houses, in our own little boxes, separate from other people, and that can really hurt our hearts. It sounds over dramatic, but it's really not a natural way for us to live, and it's not surprising that lots of us have a real struggle with that. So today's EFT is going to be to make space for those feelings, to accept how we're feeling, and to look at options for making it right, for finding a sense of community and a sense of a tribe, a sense of involvement and belonging that we really crave and we really need as humans, as much as we need our time by ourselves as well. So let's begin tapping. If you haven't done one of these videos before, all you need to do is tap where I'm tapping and repeat what I'm saying. We're going to start here on the side of the hand, which we call the karate chop point. And we'll start with, even though I feel so isolated, I feel like this is such a lonely way to live. And I don't have the tribe that I long for. I choose to love and accept myself exactly as I am. Even though this loneliness really hurts my heart at times, I don't have that sense of community and the tribe that I feel I need. And I choose to love and accept myself exactly as I am. Even though I feel so isolated and so alone. And it's a real struggle to live like that. I choose to love and accept myself exactly as I am. I feel this isolation. There's a part of me that's aware that I wasn't cut out to live like this. It's such an isolating way to live. I live separate from the people who are important to me. I might live with my family, but I don't have that wider sense of community. I don't have the support that I really need, even just on a day-to-day basis. I have friends that are there when I really need them, but I don't want to have to need them. I want them to be there even when things aren't too tough. I feel this sense of isolation, and I have this knowledge that something's wrong. It's a really difficult feeling, and I make space for that feeling now. I allow myself to look at that feeling and see what it has to tell me. I'm feeling all of this resistance to facing up to my isolation. It's not an easy thing for me to look at. It doesn't feel at all comfortable. And that feeling is there whether I look at it or not. In fact, somehow it's more there when I ignore it. This feeling of isolation. This alone feeling. This feeling of separation. It's quite a frightening feeling. Deep in my instincts, part of me is aware that I wasn't made to be isolated. And so this isolation brings with it a fear that alone isn't safe, that community is safe. I recognise that feeling now. I welcome that feeling into my experience. Because having that feeling and paying attention to it gives me an opportunity. Gives me the chance to find a way out of this isolation. A chance to build that community that I need. It might not be a quick task. It might not be that easy. But it's within my power to do that. This is something that I can do. I'm opening up to ways of finding and creating that community now. Finding the emotional and practical support that I need. Finding ways to connect with others. I have this feeling of isolation. And it's here to tell me to find another way. To find a way of bringing community into my life. And the lives of the others I connect with. This community benefits us all. Part of me feels like I'm being a burden on people. If I try to connect with them more often. Part of me says they're busy. They've got too much to do. Leave them alone. Just manage by yourself. You don't want to be a burden to them. Then they'll get sick of you. And you won't have them in your life at all. I acknowledge that these fears are there. I can see these fears. And part of me really believes them. Part of me is frightened to test whether or not they're true. For fear of ending up completely alone. I couldn't cope with that at all. If I'm feeling isolated now, just imagine how I would be feeling if I was completely alone. But maybe that's not how I would end up. Maybe I'm not going to lose the people in my life by asking to spend a little more time with them. By sending them a message even when I'm not making a plan. maybe it would take more than that to sever these connections. And maybe this is something that I can gently test now. I'm open to strengthening these connections. I'm open to allowing them to develop. I'm open to having the support that I need and to offering that support to others. I'm open to having joyful connections in my life, a sense of community, a sense of tribe. I welcome that into my experience now. Strengthening the connections I already have and finding places to form new ones. I choose to let go of this isolation now. Take a deep breath. So if there's more in that for you, if there's more around this feeling of I don't want to be a burden to people, then definitely tap more on that. It's a big fear that we have because I'm not sure how this is affected in other cultures, but definitely it's a very British thing to not want to impose on people and to just be excessively polite and think, oh, I'd better leave them alone. And in doing so, we kind of put up this barrier and we don't allow those connections to form. We talked on the group recently about how we tell everyone that we're there for them. We tell our friends that we're there for them when they need us, but the way that we can demonstrate that is by trusting that they are there for us when we need them. So it's one thing to say to somebody, I'm there for you when you need me, but you prove that to them by going to them when you need them and not thinking I'm going to be a burden on them. And the thing that really feels strongly for me, sorry that wasn't very well worded, but the thing that feels important for me when connecting with this idea of being a burden to someone is that you need to trust them. We all need to trust each other to be able to say, actually now is not a good time, in the kindest possible way. You know, I'd love to support you, but can I speak to you later on this evening? Can I speak to you in the morning? And people will learn to do that. I think maybe not everyone does it at the moment, and this increases this feeling of being a burden, and it becomes this ongoing cycle of more and more isolation. But as we learn to say, actually not right now, I just need to look after me for a little bit and then I'll be there for you at whatever point in time, that gives permission to those around us to do that. So it's a very subtle change in our ways of interacting, and in a way it kind of puts our own boundaries in place more strongly, and it feels kind of counterintuitive in a way, but having our own boundaries in place more strongly means that we can form stronger connections because we don't fear those boundaries being violated, and we don't fear that we might violate other people's boundaries accidentally without them telling us. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that some of it resonated for you, and if it's something that you want to work on in more detail, then do get in touch about one-to-one sessions. My details will be at the end of the video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye!